Okay, so you know how sometimes life just feels like it's, you know, just kind of spitting out of control a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, you guys sent in a ton of suggestions, actually, on this. And we pulled out 10 principles that we thought were super
Oh,
fascinating,
yeah.
aimed at just living, a more meaningful life a little more peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to deep dive into those today.
Right.
And I think what's really cool about these is, some of them are going to be, super practical, like, okay, yeah, I can, apply that today. And some of them I think are going to be a little surprising.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
This is a really cool collection of principles. What I like about it is it seems to be, both internal and external things that you can focus on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it gives you kind of a holistic approach.
Totally. And the first one we're going to start with is really about that external stuff, and that is the idea of focusing on what you can control.
Okay.
Now, we hear that all the time, right?
Right.
But when you're in it, when you're in that moment,
Yeah. When you're feeling overwhelmed.
when you're overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
How do you actually apply that?
Right.
So how do you think about that?
I think that it's really about directing your energy to
Right.
things that you can actually control.
Okay.
So a good example is like if you're stuck in traffic,
Right.
you can't control the cars in front of you. You can't control, when the traffic jam is going to end,
Uh-huh.
but you can control how you're reacting to that situation.
Okay.
So you can, choose to be, frustrated and angry, or
Right.
you can choose to be calm and, listen to some music or,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
So it's really about choosing where you focus your energy.
Exactly.
Okay, and this kind of leads us to our next principle, which is all about how you respond to things.
Okay.
Because life is always going to throw stuff at us.
Always.
It's really the moment between the thing happening and your reaction to it.
Right.
But you have a choice.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
I think the most important thing to realize is that we actually do have a choice in how we react.
Okay.
So that space between, something happening and your reaction
Yeah.
is where you have the power
Oh.
to choose.
So you're saying it's not just a, knee-jerk reaction.
Not always.
Okay.
You can really cultivate calmness in those moments
I like that.
and choose a wiser response.
Okay, now our third principle is a good one for all of us who just feel constantly busy,
Yeah.
and that is this necessary?
Oh, I like that.
Right.
That's a good one.
I mean, it seems so simple,
Yeah.
but how powerful is that when you think about your time?
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best filters you can have
Okay.
when you're trying to decide, what to do with your time and your energy.
Because that's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We only have so much time,
So much.
so much energy.
Yeah.
So if you can look at something and go, what is this really necessary for me to be doing right now?
Yeah.
That's incredibly powerful.
Okay, so this next one might sound a little morbid, but I promise it's not.
Okay.
Meditate on death every day.
Okay.
So it's not about, being all doom and gloom.
Right.
It's about understanding that our time is limited.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
I think it's incredibly powerful
Yeah.
to really just take a moment every day to reflect
Okay.
on the fact that our time here is limited.
Yeah.
Because it helps you to prioritize. It's really important.
Okay.
And it helps you to appreciate the present moment.
Okay, so that kind of leads us right into our next principle, which is about valuing your time more than money or possessions.
Yes.
Because you can always make more money.
True.
You can always get more stuff.
Yeah.
But once your time is gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
So how do we really start to think about that in our day-to-day lives?
I think it's about recognizing that, time is the one resource that we can't get back.
Right.
So, we can always try to earn more money,
Yeah.
but we can never get back lost time.
Yeah.
And I think realizing that helps us to prioritize
Okay.
the things that are really important to us.
So spending time with loved ones,
Yes.
experiences,
Absolutely.
those sorts of things. Exactly.
Okay, I like that. All right. Principle number 6.
Okay.
You are the product of your habits.
It's so true.
Right? It's those little things that you do day in and day out that really shape who you become.
Right.
So what are some of the maybe pitfalls that we fall into when we don't realize, the power of those little habits?
Well, I think, it's easy to think that, one little thing isn't going to make a difference.
Right.
But, if you do that one little thing every single day,
Every day.
it really adds up.
Yeah, it
It
compounds.
compounds over time.
Okay, principle number 7. This one's a little bit different.
Okay.
Remember, you have the power to have no opinion.
Isn't that an interesting one?
That's a really good one.
In a world where everyone is expected to have an opinion on everything,
Right.
to just say, you know what? I don't really have an opinion on that.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I think that can be a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up
Uh-huh.
in all the noise and all the, all the opinions that are out there.
Yeah, just the constant information
Tends to
stuff.
but, not everything requires our opinion.
Right.
We don't have to have a strong opinion on every single thing.
So it's about conserving your energy.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. Principle number 8, prioritize the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So much easier said than done for some of us.
I know I'm not a morning person.
Me neither.
But I will say, when I do get up early and I get things done,
Yeah.
it feels really good.
It changes your whole day.
It does.
Yeah. So what are some things people can do to prioritize that morning time?
Well, I think, the first thing is just to decide what's important to you.
Yeah.
What do you want to get done in the morning?
Yeah.
And then, make a plan
Okay.
for how you're going to do that.
Okay. So it's all about being intentional.
Intentional. Absolutely.
I like that. All right. Principle number 9. This one is all about self-reflection.
Okay.
Examine yourself regularly.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to just go through life on autopilot.
It is.
But how do we start to really look at, what we're doing and why we're doing it?
I think that, there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Yeah.
Some people find that journaling is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Others find that, meditation or mindfulness is helpful.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is just to find what works for you
Okay.
and to make time for it.
To be intentional about it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And our final principle, this one's a good one.
There.
Don't suffer from imaginary problems.
Oh, that's a good one.
How often do we spend time worrying about things that never actually happen?
All the time?
Right.
All the time.
All the time.
So how do we stop doing that?
Well, I think the first step is to become aware of it.
Okay.
When you find yourself worrying about something,
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself, is this a real problem
Uh-huh.
or is this an imaginary problem?
Okay.
And if it's an imaginary problem,
Yeah.
just let it go.
I love that. So 10 principles.
10 principles.
It's not about, being perfect at all of them,
Right?
but just starting to, be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more aware.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think they all work together really well.
Yeah,
They're kind of all different sides of the same coin.
totally. So for all of you listening, think about which one of these maybe sparked something for you
Yeah.
and what's one way you can maybe integrate that into your life.
That's a great takeaway.
Yeah, just something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.